Hello, this is Christian. In this video, I'm going to go over the drag and drop feature in HTML5 using JavaScript to manipulate all these data. So drag and drop is a feature that allows you or that allow a user to click on any element on the web page if you set them to be draggable and drag that item or element to a new location or a new zone. We call that the drop zone, right? So any element can be set to a draggable, and you can drop that to any other location. Again, a drop zone location is just really just another element, like the div tag, for example. So the implementation is not that hard to do. It just these functions or these events are uh, sometimes can be a little bit confusing if you don't understand the logic behind it. So here in this diagram here, I'm going to show you, kind of go over what these events are, where they occur, when do they occur, and when do you use them, and so on. Okay, and the steps in the process of how to set them up or make it work. Okay, so we have here a box here called the drag events. These events only apply to the drag. That means when you are moving the item, and then these down here in the green box are the drag also, and also plus the drop event. So these are usually occur on the drop zone site. Okay, so there are two sides to the drag and drop, the tongue twister, drag and drop events. Okay, so first you need to understand the drag events, three functions: the drag start, drag, and drag end. Okay, so and so that's one piece of the puzzle. The other piece is this yellow box, orange box here, called draggable. A draggable is really just any of the HTML element that you set to draggable. The word draggable is actually an attribute that you can set in any element. Okay, and so we'll look at that in a little bit here. And then the third piece of the puzzle is here is the drop zone. Okay, I put here just one drop zone, but really you can have a lot. You can have many places. Think of it like a question, a multiple choice question, where instead of just clicking A, B, and C, and D, you drag an item to that particular answer, right? And so that's in like that context. So in that case, there are about 5 functions that apply to the drop zone area. So we have the drag enter. These are, as you can see, very similar to the mouse enter, mouse leave, and so on. Right? So you have the drag enter, a drag over, a drag leave, drag exit, and drop. Okay, there's about 5 of these functions. And I put them down here separate from the other one up here because these get fired when this draggable item here, this orange box, is dropped or is hovered over this drop zone here. So when this yellow orange box here is hovered over or it's in this space, then these 5 functions here get triggered. Okay, and so when you click your mouse on this orange box, when I click on it, and when I click on it, when I start moving it, then these 3 functions up here, or these 3 events are triggered. Okay, so that's what going to separate them and to kind of, show you where things occur, when do they occur. Okay, so here, the 2 events I put in red here, like the drag and the drag over. You can see here, I put here, it says fires continuously, and down here too, fires continuously. And the others are just fired once, meaning when I click on the drag, when I click drag start, as soon as I start moving it, the drag start event is triggered, and it fires only once. So that means you can write a function to perform some events in there as well. And then when I let go, then that's the end of the drag. So at that instance, the drag event or drag end gets fired, and then again you can write a function to perform some task in there as well. Okay, the drag is when it's between the drag start and the drag end. So while you start the drag and while it's not ended yet, the drag occurs all the time. It keeps firing every millisecond. Okay, it keeps firing until you let go. Okay, and kind of similar down here. These are again the drag enter, meaning when this item here is entering this space. So this green box down here, drop zone, has the boundary here, right? So when the border or the boundary of this draggable item um, overlaps or coincides, or I guess the better term is collides with the drop zones box, then this item enters into that space. So the drag enter fires. Okay, and then while that is being entered here, like in this position here, then the drag over gets fired continuously, very similar to the drag up here. So that means at this position, the drag and drag over both fire continuously until one of these is true, right? So again, the only thing is that this part down here, these only fire when this item is in the space here. If it's out of the space, all these are off. But this drag, right, it always fires as long as this is still being moved around. It doesn't matter where you put up here or you put in a drop zone, wherever it is, until you let go, then this drag will not stop. Okay? So those are the things that you want to look for. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to use all of them to make this work. You don't have to. You don't have to write functions to perform any of these tasks at all. You don't have to do that. The only one that you need to do is maybe just a drop. If that's all you care about is to accept the drop, then you only do two things. One, set this element to be draggable. I'll show you do that. And then set the drop to accept this draggable, because you can choose what to accept. Because a drop zone, maybe this one here can only accept a certain element. A different zone can accept only certain elements. So you can control that. So that's what you need to do. Okay, on the right side here is a list of the steps that you need to take to set this up. So again, usually, I guess the order doesn't really matter here, I guess, but just to kind of give you an idea of how you would approach this. So the first thing is you need to decide what is draggable. Anything that you want to set to draggable, you have to set the elements property called draggable to true. Okay, this draggable property here takes three values. Is either true, false, or auto. Okay, if you don't supply it, most of these do not come by default. You don't see it. I mean, they come by default. You don't see it explicitly in the element, but they do have a draggable property set to auto by default. So if you don't provide one, it's set to auto. Auto means it's up to the browser. So whichever browser you use, that is depending on that company or that browser how they set it. But usually the two type of elements that are draggable by default are images and text, right? Those are draggable. For example, if you can highlight this and you can drag this around like you see here, right? You can drag around like in Microsoft Word. And so, for example, if I go to the gateway side here, so you can see that this is an image. So usually, again, most images are draggable. That means when I click on my mouse and drag, you can see that it's being moved around, right? It's draggable. Same thing here. This is the text. I can highlight it like that and click it and move around. You can drag it around. Okay. Some elements don't let you do that, like the div tag or videos. I think they don't let you you move. So here again, this big idea here is this is probably an image, so I can drag it around as well. You can see that here. This one is not draggable. This big picture here maybe because it's hitting under certain tags, or it may be set to false, things like that. Same thing down here. These are, yes, you can see I cannot drag this around. I cannot drag this image here. I can drag. You can see that, right? So this text here, you cannot just click and drag, right? I have to highlight it first, and then I can drag around, and so on. So, but as I drag around, you see the little this circle with a slash. It means that there is no drop zone. I cannot drop it anywhere. Nothing to accept it, except unless I go up here into a input box. If I click on the search here, you see that this is a input box that accepts text. So I can drag this inside here, right? it accepts that. So it works exactly like this one here. I can drag it and put into a drop zone. So kind of same scenario here. Um, so let's see. All right, so this one here, as you can see, I cannot drag it, this picture here, and it's probably, nested inside other div tags and so on. And those, again, div tags are not draggable by default. And so you can press the F12 key, like I do here now, and let's inspect this image here. So if I go and inspect this image, go to elements, you can see it's a div tag contains inside here more div tags and so on. The actual image is, somewhere down, it's probably a background image set in here. So if you want to drag this red box around, you can set the div tag, probably this one here, which is the parent div. Let me see. So this is the parent div here. Let's just say this drag here. If I can go and set this to be draggable. So let me go ahead and just edit this HTML, and I'll set this to say draggable, the property draggable set to true. I force it to be true. I click out of it. Now you see that it's now set to draggable. I can click in and drag it around. You can see that I can move it around now. It just doesn't have a drop zone to drop this, right? I couldn't do that before. Okay, so I can see that here. Same thing here. This is draggable because it's image. I can set it so that you cannot drag this just by, setting that to false. Okay. So let's go and do a little bit of coding to see how this works. I'm going to go into WebStorm here. Okay, so in the Unit 2, I'm going to create a new file, and I'll just call it index. And so in here, I'm going to put just maybe like a paragraph, and you know what? Let's make an H1 or something. Let's kind of make it H2. Make it a little bit big. And I'll put here drag me. Okay. And we're going to set this to draggable. That means I have to set this H2 to say draggable equals true. Okay, now I can drag this around. And down here, I'm going to make some drop zones. Okay, I'll put here a div tag, one drop zone. I can make a couple of them. You don't have to be, you just have to be just one. You can make a couple of them. And you can say, let's add some class in here. So I'm going to make this like a, just call it drop zone. And well, I just use this so I can style it, basically. I'm going to go up here and put a style. And I'll put the drop zone. I'll make this like a border, a 1px solid, black, height, maybe, I don't know, not so much, maybe 25px, and then the width will be, how much should I say, 150 maybe? Something like that. And okay, so yeah, so something like that. Now I can go ahead and make a couple of these, let's say 3 of them, right? So if I save this now and run on the browser, and so here are the boxes, kind of small, making them bigger. So I can drag this. You can see that I can drag now because I set that to true, right? If I turn it to false, you cannot drag this around. All right, so let's go back and make this. Put here margin. Let's just say 10px for margin all around. And I'll make the height a little bit taller. Let's just make 100. Okay, let's save that. Back here, refresh. Okay, so I can drag and put it in here. That's what I'm trying to do here, right? So you can see these are the drop zones, but they are not set to accept them yet, right? So let's go and do something to these events here. So this is a draggable. Okay, because I set to be draggable. The drop zone also can be set to draggable if you want, because you're not, yeah, it's not that once it's set to a drop zone, then it cannot be set to draggable. Everything can be set to draggable. Even this can be set to a drop zone too if you want, but I mean, it doesn't make sense in this scenario, but yeah, you can. So I had 3 drop zone, I think 100 50 is a little bit too big. Let's just make it 100. I mean, for the height. Let's just put like 80. Okay. So now you see that when I click the drag, I can move it around. Now it needs to trigger an event. So in JavaScript, you can attach an event directly to the H2 element here, like on click, on mouse enter, and things like that. There is a on drag start, right? So you can put on drag here. You can have on drag start. Okay. If you want to, you don't have to. And you can also set on drag end. So you can see you can set all these here because these are this apply directly to the draggable. And just for simplicity's sake, I'm going to put here a console message to the console. I'll just put here console log. Just put drag here so you can see what that looks like on the console. I'm going to copy this and put over here for the on drag start, and we'll just say drag start. I do one here also for drag end. Drag ends. Okay, start it and we end it. Okay, so now let me save this. I'm going to fix the console here. Okay, so I'm going to save this, and it's kind of hard to see. Let me just put this into the own separate line so you can see them. All right, let's save this. I'm going to close this one for now. And let's go to the browser and refresh our site. Refresh it. Okay, so now I'm going to go and press F12. And we're going to expect this. I'll put this on the right side since it's on the left here. Okay, so when I drag me, you watch the console here. What's going to happen? I click on drag. My mouse is down. I move. You see that drag started, fires. Now I'm in a dragging mode. So as you can see, it keeps firing. The number keeps running for every millisecond. We call those tick. Okay, so the drag keeps moving around until I let go, and then the drag ended. So you can see those three events occur for this draggable here. So again, when I click it again, I move, then it starts again, I let go, and then it ended here. So that is the event. So now when I drag this over one of these drop zones, it's going to fire some of these events as well. So let's go back and add some code in there. So now these are the drop zones. So same thing again. You can add the functions directly here, which is not recommended. I just show you anyway so you can see how they work. Here will be like on drag enter. When I enter the drag space here, I'll put here console enter drop zone. I put that here, okay? And then another one would be like on drag leave. You say console log leaving drop zone. All right, and then you can add one more, right? The hover, the over, and stuff. So I'll put one more here on drag over over drag drop zone. Okay, so this gets fired once. This is also once, and this is fired continuously, just like the drag. Okay, like the drag up here on the drag. So these two here fire continuously, while the rest are just once. Let's save this and go back to the browser. Now let me go back and refresh my browser so the other one gets activated. So now again, I could click and move, and now when I'm gonna enter the drop zone here, okay, so I enter, and you can see the drag and over drop zone gets fired simultaneously all the time until I leave that, and you see that it leaves the drop zone down there at the bottom, but my drag keeps going. I'm also over the drop zone is ended because it's no longer inside the drop zone. If I go back in there again, those two run again. If I leave, and so on. And I want to let go, then we ended the drag. Okay, so you can see that the drag and drop zone, the drag and drag over, they run simultaneously, constantly until you ended that drag. Okay, so the next thing is you then drop it. So when I click it, when I drag over this, notice again the circle with the slash, that means it's not droppable. I can't drop it until I let go, and then when you let go, it needs to accept a drop, right? So that means, go back in the code, when I enter the space, then I need to also set one of these to say drop. So again, let me just kind of put this into the own line so you can see better. These are all the events, and I put one more here for on drop. Okay, when I drop it, it's going to say drop. I just put drop here. Okay, but it doesn't really do anything yet because we didn't really move the element. Once we drop the item here, it's acceptable. Then we need to move this h2 inside the div tag here. Okay, let's save that and let's run it one more time. All right, so drag over, I drop. Right? You see that it did not fire because you didn't see that drop fired, because we need to do a few things. Two things. One is when you drop into the drop zone here, you need to turn off the default. So the default for the drop is that it doesn't allow anything to be dropped into it. So you have to set the turn off the default to false. That means you have to, prevent the default, right, from happening. Okay, so these are really simple code here. Normally you would, use the functions. For now, this is fine. So I'm going to say here, you have to prevent the default from happening. So I'm going to write a function to do these examples here. This is just to show you really quickly, but usually use function to do that. And again, there's a couple ways to do this. This is just one way. One is to set these events directly to each element. What if I have another one? Well, I have to do it again. That's a lot of work, right? So what we usually like to do is don't set these here. We will write this. We'll listen to these events by using a event listener. So you can add event listener, listen to a drag start, a drag end, and so on. Same thing here. Listen to a drag and so on. So that way you can have as many as elements you want, and all you have to do is just set the draggable to true, and pretty much that's it, right? So the drop zone can take any of these draggables. Okay, so instead of doing this, I'm going to do a little bit differently. So I'm going to go and add a script up here, and we'll include a script as an external script. So I'll put src here. I'm going to put inside a script folder, and I'll call it main. Let's call it draggable. Drag drop.js. Okay, and that means in my folder over here, I'm going to go and create a new folder. I'll call it scripts. Inside here, I have my JavaScript. Call it drag drop.js. All right, so included in here already. And the style sheet here could be set to external style sheet, but so far it's fine. So my drag drop.js here, I need to do the window load, right? I want to make sure that I capture the draggable here. So these, instead of putting them here, I'm going to turn these off and just put the draggable here. That's all I'm doing. Okay, and I'm set to this draggable. That's all I need. And then these, well, we'll leave this for now. And so to target this element, I need to maybe set a variable. I guess I put a global variable here. We can call it var draggable. I will set it to nothing yet so far. And inside here, then we're going to we'll do a few things, right? We're going to listen to events. And the events are the one I showed you earlier. So in here you can say something like document.add event listener, and the event listener type would be either a drag, that is the drag event, and you can use another function, or you can use the anonymous function, or you can use the arrow function, right? Arrow function looks like this. This for ES6 here. Anonymous function looks like that. So that's for the drag event. I'll copy this a few times. This is for the drag start, and then here for the drag end. Okay, so these three things occur to be applied to this draggable item. This draggable here is H2 here. Okay, and this H2, since I'm doing this way, then we can, yeah, it doesn't really matter, because what I would do is when I click on it, whenever I click on this H2 and I drag, because this is set to true, when I click on the drag, it's going to trigger one of these events here. So in fact, this is going to fire, this is going to fire. When I let go, this is going to fire. Okay, so whichever it is, it doesn't really matter. Any element that you can drag will call these functions here. So when I drag start, so usually the drag start occurs first, right? This makes sense. Start, and then keep dragging, end. So when this happens, I'm going to set this variable to this H2, or whatever this element is. I don't really care, whatever this is. Okay, so that means inside here, I'm going to say draggable going to be equal to the E here refers to the event. Event of what? Event of the mouse, right? When you click on this, the mouse clicks on the H2, then a host of events, properties that come with this event here. So when I click on this event and click on this H2, there is a property called target. So event.target points to this exact H2 element. If I click on another element and a div, then event.target points to the div tag, and so on. Okay, so that means when I click on the drag and I click drag, I'm going to set this draggable to the E. E is just this E here. You can call it event or EVT. Some people call it event. I just call it E for short. E.target. Okay, this is the H2 in this example. Okay, it points to that particular H2. And if you want to really make sure, I can show you that. You can console log here, the draggable dot inner HTML, and let's see if it prints that to the message, to the console. If it is correct, it should print the word drag me to the console when I move this. So let's save this and see if it still works. So refresh my screen, and again when I click and drag, you see that the word drag me has been displayed. That is coming from the function, right? Because when I click on it and drag, because that's the content of the HTML H2. That's what I mean, right? So when I set the draggable to this, it points to H2. If I have another one, say I just Control D here, another H2 and drag me to. Okay, so as you can see here, it's a completely separate element. That's all I'm doing, set to draggable, and refresh it on the browser. Refresh it. You see that if I click drag me to, the word drag me to shows up here. If I go and click drag me shows up here. So they're independent, and this is the beauty of object-oriented programming, right? Each of these is independent. So I can drag this and put it here. I can drag this and put it here. It doesn't matter what I have here. It'll work because the way I have my code here, my code is very much universal because it listens, right? It listens to a drag. Anything that you drag that is set to the draggable, then it listens to that. Okay. Now the next part is to drop in the drop zone here, right? So we need to do the drop zone. And so the drop zone, all you have to do is basically you listen to a drop. Okay, listen to a drop, And if the drop is in this drop zone, then you put your stuff in here. So again, I'm going to turn all these off, remove all of these, and we'll just use JavaScript to add the drop zone. So I have drop zone 1, 2, and 3. So that means any of these can be a drop zone, right? So back here again, I'm just going to write the one document to do the drop. So document add event listener. This is the drop. A drop event takes place when a draggable item is dropped into it. It has to be a draggable item. If it's not draggable, it won't work, right? So when I drop that, then I can listen to a event. Again, same thing, use the error function. When I drop it in there, again, you have to prevent the default from happening. The default is it won't let you drop inside it. So I'll show you what that means when I don't put that in there. So let's just say that if it's in that drop zone, then I'm going to when I drop it in there, I'm gonna add this draggable to wherever this element is I drag to. In this case, when I go back here, when I drag this into this box here is the target. So if I do e.target, it points to this div tag, and so on. So that means inside here, the drop, when I say e.target, right, that is the div tag, and I put append child, right? What am I appending? I'm going to append this draggable, whatever it was. I put it in here, and I'm going to move it from that tree, wherever it was, and add it to this draggable event here, the ID there, right? And I think that's gonna do it. Let me see. Okay, so let's save this and see if this works. Let's save that and go to the browser, refresh it, and so when I click and drag inside here, as you can see, it doesn't work because I think we have to set the prevent default to true. So in here, I'm going to set e dot I think e dot prevent default from happening. So that means allow the drop. That's all I'm saying, right? And so I'm gonna move this draggable, append it to this drop zone. Okay, and then we'll see if that's the case. So oops. So let's save that, and let's try one more time. Okay, so click and drop. Okay, it's still not working, and we'll see why. It's probably one of those things not set correctly. Okay, I think, yeah, I think it has to do with the drop over, because when you over it, it prevents that from dropping either. So let's go back and add one more. So when I add the drop, this should be fine. And I'm gonna copy this and I would put above here. And this is for the drop over. Okay, when I over it, I'm not gonna do any appending here. You don't do that. You do inside when you drop it, right? I'm gonna prevent default. That means allows. I'm gonna allow the drop to drop, and then because this is like nested inside the drop, and then you also prevent it from the default. Allow the drop, and then add that to the item there. So let's save that and try it again. I'm gonna save, load my page here, and drag, and then yeah, something's not right. Let me see what's going on here. All right, it's not firing. Let's go back to the code and see what happens here. Okay, drag, drop over, squiggly line. Oh yeah, this should not be drop over. There's no drop over. It should be drag over. Okay, so drag over, prevent the default, allow the drop, and then when the actual drop occurs, when you let go of the mouse, it again allow the drop, and then you move that over to this object, which is whatever this may be, right? So you save that. So one more time, refresh the browser. Okay, so drag me, and so here we go. So we can drag that, put it in here, right? The inside here now, the ugly is kind of ugly because the formatting here, but I can move this around now because all these are drop zones, right? I can drop it in there. So if you look at the element, you see that the actual element are being dragged inside here live. If I move it to the third box, you see that's been added to the DOM tree here. Okay, the H2 has been dragged into that, and so on. If I drag it here, it is here. It's part of that. As you can see, it's part of the H2. It's in here, but it's inside each other, um, and so on. So that's how draggable works, and there are a lot of things you can do with this. And one of the reasons why you want to use this function is because, like, when you mouse over this, drag over, when you drag the over it, and you want to do something about that, the box. Maybe you want to highlight it, right? So you can highlight the targets, which is the current box that is being hovered over. Either one of these, this, or that, doesn't really matter. You can change the color of that box to something else. You can say e.target dot style dot background color, to just say yellow when I hover that, right? And let's see, I think that might be, this is not, yeah. Let's see, so if I save that, and if I go and back to the browser and refresh it, and this will stay yellow because I did not, turn it back off. So if I over it, you see that it turns to yellow, and that's a lot because um, it it did not just hover over this, it'll hover everything here. So that's not what you want. You just want see its entire box here. I just want inside the drop zone here. So to do that, we want to well set some like um, you want to just target these three here. So the one, I guess, the one that has the classical drop zone. Otherwise, it's going to affect the entire body because the body is also is droppable, right, by default. Okay, so that means you need to, I guess, you can check to see if the well, let's see. If I hover it, I should be able to just not hover, but maybe want to enter the space, right? Want to enter it. So again, that's why you have more of these options. Want to enter the space, not draw over. When I enter it, I'm not gonna do the default here. I'm not doing anything here. I'm just change the background. That's what I'm doing. So let's turn this off, and I'm gonna change the to yellow, and then when I leave, I change it back to wherever it was. So you have all these cool features. When I enter, change to yellow. When I leave, change back to I think it was white, right? The default. And let's save that and go back to the browser. So again, when I enter, hover, it doesn't change yellow. When I let go, when I hover, when I leave, yeah, it's supposed to change to yellow, and maybe not doing something right. Because when I drag it, yeah, let's go and see what happens. So drag enter. Oh, this is a drag leave. When I enter, change the target to be yellow background color. That's no, it doesn't like that. It's be background color and white. Let's save that, and let's do one more time. Okay, so here we go. So notice, the body also affects that. We didn't want to do that, but so this one occurs, and again, if you over the body but it also accepts that, everything else accepts that because they all can be hovered over, right? because this is the draggable now. So to be a little bit more specific, you can also check the size, check the style to make sure. So what I mean is like if the eTarget dot class, I guess, is equal to the drop zone class, only those can receive the background. You can be more specific now, right? Otherwise, don't allow it. Class, I can't use it. Class name. Okay, eTarget class name equals the drop zone. Then go ahead and change color. Otherwise, don't. And let me copy this again. Put it down here. I'll put it back to white. Okay. So let's save that. And then when I drop it, actually do it a drop. And again, I'll probably do that here too. Put that here. And if it's a drop zone, then the color change back to, well, yeah, I'll already put it into the white. So when I leave though, when I enter also, I need to put it into white when I drop it, just to make sure, because I might not leave. So let's see, refresh that again. So over that yellow, so now you can see that only that part gets highlighted because we filtered it, right, to be only in the box. When I let go, it goes back to white. When I drag it over again, and so on. Okay. One more thing, you'll notice that when I drag, like drag me to, you see two copies of it. Like the drag here stays here, and the other version, floats around. So what you do is you want to hide this piece when you are dragging it. This original should be gone. Okay, and it takes a little bit. It's a little trick to do that. It has to do with the event loop that is built into JavaScript. So that means when I drag it, this copy is floating around. This virtual copy is floating around, but the real element still there in the background. So it's the visible. So what you can do, you can set this opacity, or you can hide it completely. And when you drop it in here, you can move it, turn it back on again. Okay. So let's go back here. So when I drag up here, when I start the drag start, right, it's set to draggable. But then I'm gonna just, yeah, that's fine. You can say something like the eTarget dot. If I do the display, if I put none like this, if I do that, it's not going to work, because what it will do is it's going to hide it. Okay, instantly. So let's see. Save that. Go back and show you again. Save, refresh. So when I click and drag, notice that. Well, okay, it didn't happen. Let's refresh it again. Okay, probably my code is not correct. Let's see, eTarget, style.display. Okay, so the display style is set to none. Now when I go back and refresh my page, notice when I click and drag, it hides it. It's gone. It's still here. It's in here. It's just not visible because I hide it, right? And that's what you want. You don't want to do that. Well, it's gone. If you hide it, it's gone, right? It's not being displayed. It's here, but it's not being displayed. And so what you want to do is you say when you drop it, we want to show it back. It needs to be visible again when you drop. So the trick to that is to use a timer. Put a timeout, and you hide it that tick. One tick behind the actual element being dragged. It's hard to understand, but that's what happens. So set time out, and you call it anonymous function here. I'll put E here just in case. And then here you put this inside the set timeout, because this will fire one tick behind the rest of the code, even the one after it. So that means when you drag, a copy of that drag text is being moved around, and then the next second or tick is going to call this function and then hide the display. Okay, but when I drop it in here, in the drop, I have to turn it back on. So I have to turn this draggable back on. So that means I have to do something similar here. So E target here points to the draggable inside this case. But down here though, when I drop it, it's no longer E target because it's going to call the E target points to the drop zone. That is why I used a global variable called draggable. Okay, so instead of that, we would say draggable.style display is back to block. Okay, so it will show up, right? So let's see. Save this. Drag. Notice. Okay, it didn't disappear yet. Okay, something's not right. Let's do it one more time. Let's check it out. Check it one more time. Maybe my console has an error. Yeah. Target is undefined and 13. Yeah. Error. So let's see. What happened here? It worked before. Let's see. Target that style displays none. Let's do one more time here. Okay. Well, let's see. That did not hide. Okay, so line 13. Let's check it out for the last time. 13, E is not defined. Oh, okay, so when you do a term this E here is not this E here. This E, you don't have to put it here. This E refers to the actual E outside here passing to this function. So yeah, just let me move that because this E is this one here, not the one it's passed to it. Okay, so let's save that again and refresh it again. And so you can see when I drag it, actually you can see it's gone, right? And that's what you want. You don't want to have a copy there still being visible. It just make it a little nicer. But as soon as I drag, you can see that that thing, shifts because if I hide it. So instead of hiding, if that's not the case, if you don't want to do that, then notice again when I drop it, I let go, the end, it did not come back because I hit that. It's been set to the default, which is in this case, the H2 is set to display is none. We want to change back to the default. So the last piece again is you also want to add that to the drop end. So again, let me copy this, and when I end it, the drag in here, so you can say, let's put E here. E refers to the event. E that displays block. E target. You do that, we just put the draggable that target style. It's same thing. And just in case if I do stop it, if I end it, it comes back. So if I let go, it's down there, but so it comes back. Okay, but yeah, this is a little thing to fix here, but at least you get the idea. You can have in between, dropping and dragging, you have all these functions you deal with. You can change the background color of the drag item here. You can change the opacity, or other things can occur, right? That's the beauty of JavaScript. So I hope this is helpful. And I know I went over a little bit too much, but at least I hope you get an idea of how to set up your drag and drop feature in here.